Let's shift to how do we help them become happy, self-confident? So what are some of the things that we want to do as our kids shift into tween and teenage years to help them become happier and more self-confident?
Absolutely. The kids that I've taught, and I've taught over 3,000 students in my career thus far, and the ones who appear to be happy and self-confident, they have a growth mindset and they have good relationships with others, both peers and adults. They welcome opportunities. They aren't afraid to fail. They talk positively about others and themselves. And they really have a positive self-talk that I can do it. Kind of like the little engine that could. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. And what's interesting is even if they can't, they don't say, oh, I just can't do this and give up. They say, I don't understand this yet. So it's the power of yet. And I think eventually through their continuous learning, improvement, having an open-mindedness and readiness to accept constructive feedback, that's what I see as the children who are truly happy and confident. And they also know that effort is the key, and it's not just about their ability. They don't just rely and sit back and thinking, oh, because I'm smart, I'm going to get this. I think there's a confidence to that, but they also know that intelligence is linked to effort. So as parents, we want to focus attention on a child's effort over the performance. That is so super, super important, because if a child does really well on a test, let's say they get like a 95 out of 100 and they didn't study, and your reaction as a parent is, hey, great job, nice job at 95. The kid's saying to himself deep down, I didn't even study, and mom and dad don't care about that. They just care I got a 95. End of story. So they're going to translate that the grade's more important, and they're just smart enough to not study, versus if you said, what I say to kids when they say, hey, Mr. Haddad, are you proud of me? I got a 95. I say, how much did you study for this? And they say, oh, I didn't. And I said, well, if you'd studied a little more, you would have done better. And they look at me like, what? And then the kid who gets an 80 or an 85, they say, oh, Mr. Haddad, I did a lot better than the other test that I failed. And I said, what was the secret ingredient to that? What caused that? And they said, I actually studied an hour or two. I said, how did you study? Oh, I talked to my parents. I did flashcards. I talked to myself in the mirror. I said, that's fantastic. You keep that up and you're going to just continue to improve. And they're like, yay, they feel better about themselves. So things of that nature is what makes a happy, self-confident tween or teen. High self-confidence, high self-efficacy.
Okay, so these are things you can start to weave into your values, into your discussions in your family. These things like growth mindset and good relationships, focusing on effort over performance. It's interesting because for my kids, like they didn't have grades until 7th grade. There were no letter grades, that they had it all on any of their things until recently with 7th grade. And so the idea of focusing on effort over performance that was all there was. So it wasn't like I had to counteract the system that was in place. But for most of us, most of the listeners, you're going to have to counteract maybe a system that's maybe on paper putting performance over effort, depending on what your teachers are emphasizing and things like that. So how can we talk to our tweens about this as parents? We want to have those conversations to say, did you study for this? And that's what was the question I always asked my girls, was like, so they've started to bring, Maggie's been bringing home grades for a while because she's in high school, but my daughter who's in 7th grade just started bringing home grades. And I was like, how do you feel about these grades? And I just want to turn it back to her, like, because this is her thing. It's not my thing. It's not about me to put a stamp of approval or disapproval on it. It's her. So I asked her, how do you feel about this? And she'll say, and she talks about it more. Are there ways parents can discuss these things to kind of cultivate this growth mindset and this focus on effort?
Absolutely. I think as a parent, it's super important to be involved early on in a child's life, and setting a routine is so important. And that goes for even homework completion. So there should be a routine, whatever it is, when they come home. If it's say 15 minutes to half an hour, they have a snack, they unwind. And then after that, again, age dependent how much homework they have, but sitting down and having a quiet area free of distractions, doing your homework, studying for whatever you need to study for. And then early on, the parents there to help guide them in terms of ways to study and checking over the work for completion and seeing they did it neatly. And the more that a parent is interested in the child's work, the more the child knows that and will want to normally strive. I'm a big believer in high expectations, because if you shoot for the stars, you might hit the moon. And if a child knows you have high expectations for them, that gives them a sense of confidence that mom and dad believe I can do this. So already out of the get-go, it's a mindset.